What do you do before then?
All right, so as I said, ladies and gentlemen, rather than use the sound of my boring voice, I'm going to use somebody else's to explain how to turn TP-CASTT into an actual critical analysis essay. All right. You don't necessarily need to take notes, but you do need to pay attention.
And define what they are. So what is a poetic analysis? Well, it's an essay that, number one, defines the theme of a poem, and two, describes how poetic devices are used to develop that theme. Okay? Now, I should note at this point, be sure to use pause and rewind as often as you need to on this video to make sure you get all the material that I discussed. Make sure you get it down in notes, and also make sure that you understand it. Of course, also write down any questions that you have on the left-hand page of notes. So knowing that a poetic analysis, it identifies the theme of a poem, and then it talks about how poetic devices develop that theme. Let's have a look at how we actually are going to write it. Well, first of all, you have to complete a TP-CASTT of a poem or a selection of a poem. Once you've completed that TP-CASTT, you need to really make sure that the theme you decided on is both feasible and defensible. Feasible meaning it makes sense within the context of the poem. It's not way out there. That it's not too broad, not too narrow, but that it's just right. And defensible meaning that there's evidence for that theme within the poem. Once you've done that, the third step is to identify the strongest patterns that you found in the TP-CASTT and determine how they relate to the theme. At this point, it's important to mention that you're not going to write everything from your TP-CASTT into a poetic analysis. You're only going to be using the very strongest evidence, the strongest 2 or 3 poetic devices from the poem in the poetic analysis. Okay? In front of you, you should have my sample poetic analysis of my hypothesis faults. I want you to notice that this is not a complete essay. This essay is missing a few things. It's missing an introduction in the first paragraph, or an opening. It's missing a second body paragraph, and it's missing a conclusion. I gave you just part of a poetic analysis because I want you to see the overall structure of a poetic analysis, and I want you to see the kind of thinking and communication that goes into that. I don't necessarily need you to see an entire one at this point. But do note that your poetic analysis will have an opening in the first paragraph. It will have multiple body paragraphs. It will have a concluding paragraph. Okay? You'll notice that the thesis statement is 1 sentence long. Okay, here's my thesis right here. In Theodore Roethke's poem, My Papa's Waltz, the theme that happy childhood memories can be tinged with sorrow is developed through diction and shapes of form. You'll notice that in that thesis, I mentioned the theme, and then I mentioned 2 poetic devices that help develop that theme. Next, you will notice that the first poetic device I discussed, my first body paragraph, is about diction. Diction, by the way, is word choice.
All right, so we talked about theme, but we haven't spent a lot of time on it. All right, when you guys are writing your theme, or your thesis statement, excuse me, let me rephrase that. We have talked about thesis, all right, but we haven't spent a significant amount of time on it yet because that is coming. However, you have written the thesis statement before, so this is nothing new. Notice that he said his thesis statement included mention of the theme, 2 poetic devices. Okay, that's kind of something I would be looking for in your thesis statement. You're going to understand that. Now, the reason for that is very simple. It actually helps you with the construction of your essay. All right, because thesis statement obviously is that one single declarative statement that tells the reader exactly what you're going to be talking about in your essay. But it gives you clear understanding of what you need to write about. And as you will see here, the person in the video talks about the thesis statement and splits it up. Says, here's the theme, and here are the 2 devices that contribute to the theme, right? So his body paragraph will cover theme, poetic device, how it relates, theme, poetic device, how it relates. Does that make sense? It's a lot easier for you to keep track and keep that structure that we've been talking about, that organizational structure, throughout your entire essay. Does that make sense?
You may want to take note of that. I don't believe the word diction is found anywhere in the packet of poetic devices.
Obviously, that's
but diction does refer to a poet's word choice. Okay? Next, I want you to notice a few things about this paragraph.
Follow along.
Read through the paragraph on your own. I want you to notice that, first of all, the opening sentence describes what poetic device I'm going to be discussing in this paragraph. Next, throughout the paragraph, at the bottom of the paragraph, you'll notice that I discussed the poetic device diction in two separate ways. First, I described the happy aspects of diction. Next, I described the sad or violent aspects of it. Finally, I wrap up the paragraph with a sentence right here. It says the contrast between playful diction and sad, violent diction shows the conflicted nature of the boy's memory. This final sentence shows how my evidence in the paragraph proves my thesis. How the evidence in the paragraph develops the theme that happy childhood memories can be sorrow. You'll also notice that the opening sentence of my next paragraph, which is all you get of the next paragraph, transitions from the previous one and tells you very clearly what I'm going to be talking about in that paragraph. Okay? So you're going to want to make sure that you follow the same pattern in your poetic analyses. At this point, I encourage you to make sure your notes are caught up on this. Make sure you write down any or the observations that I made.
All right, so we can stop right there. So, long story short, ladies and gentlemen, all right, what I am looking for, and again, I will have a rubric. I will hand it to you guys, and I'm also going to post one online. All right, what I'm looking for is essentially 4 paragraphs that shouldn't take you any more than a page. All right, it should be about 3/4 of a page, but no more than a page to accomplish this essay. All right, 4 to 5 paragraphs, no longer than 1 page long, no longer than 1 page. All right, you'll have an intro, multiple body paragraphs, and you'll have a conclusion. Make sense? Now, if you take a look at the reason I gave you that exemplar for the poem you were talking about, is on one side is the poem, on the other side is the actual example analysis that you wrote. Okay? But if you are following along, then you will notice everything that he was talking about. More importantly, what I also want you to notice, if you look at the example paragraph, is the numbers that are in parentheses in the paragraph. As he gives evidence about why he feels what he feels through his analysis, what he also gives is where that evidence can be found. Right? So that 5, that's line 5. That 10 and that 13, that's line 10 and 13 in the poem. So that's something that you guys need to keep in mind as you are writing yours, because when you give your evidence as to your analysis, what I'm going to do is turn around and look in the poem for that evidence. I'm not just say it, you got to turn you got it from the shoulder, because I'm going to be looking for that as part of grading the paper. Because I understand that. Any questions so far? Again, this is not an overly complicated process. All right, you guys can fill out a TP-CASTT template before. All right, now we're going to do it using each other's poems. Okay, I'm not going to hand you some poem that you can go look up on Google and just rewrite the analysis. That's too easy. Everything the poem ever written has an analysis already attached to it. There's no analysis attached to this one, so you got to actually read it. You got to actually have it. Does that make sense? All right. Calm down, sir.